Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to start discussion on a new chapter called beam theory, where we'll be discussing both the bending and buckling of beams. Now, this chapter will be basically an application of the previous two chapters we have been studying, that is the calculus of variations and the energy methods. Now, when we say beam theory, what we basically mean is a theory which is based on uh, the most simplifying of assumptions. And sometimes this is referred to as classical beam theory or the engineering beam theory, which is to say that there could be other forms of beam theory which relax some of those simplifying assumptions, and they may be referred to sometimes as Timoshenko beam theory or with some other names. And you can have a myriad variety of those kinds of beam theories. Now, our purpose here is to learn the fundamentals. So we'll stick to the classical beam theory or the engineering beam theory. But even within the ambit or scope of this simplifying assumptions, we'll see that the theoretical developments will involve quite a bit of derivations. And it is my experience that when we become too engrossed in those theoretical derivations, sometimes students lose sight of the forest for the trees, meaning that they get too much involved in the details and then lose track of what is actually going on in the broad scheme of things. So, uh, what I'll do in this particular video is to set out the broad overview of this chapter without going into any specific derivations, so that later on, when we become a bit too engrossed in the details, uh, the students, and we can always refer back to this particular video to get our bearings straight. So, on that note, let us set out the overview of this chapter. So what we intend to do here is, of course, the derivations of the beam theory, and what we would like to do uh, is to consider basically two types of loading: lateral loading and axial loading. So suppose we have a beam like this. Uh, Suppose we have a beam like this. What I mean by lateral loading is something like this. Okay, so this is a very generic kind of loading where you note that the direction of this loading is transverse to the longitudinal direction of this beam. Okay, and this could be point load, this could be a uniformly distributed load, this could be a non-uniformly distributed load. So we can have varieties of loadings possible in this transverse or lateral direction. We could also have a loading in this axial direction. Okay, and please note that this need not always be in this tensile or stretching kind of form. It could be very well be compressive. So our intention is to develop the beam theory in the presence of these kinds of loads. So let us break down the plan. Okay, so what we are planning to do here is to first of all consider just the lateral loading. Okay, just the lateral loading, and the way that we are going to develop the theory is by appealing first of all to the principle of stationary potential energy. Now, some of you may balk at at the mention of this principle stationary potential energy, because back in the energy methods chapter, although we discussed the concept of potential energy, we did not really discuss this principle of stationary potential energy. So I will discuss this in a moment before this video is over. So don't worry about it at all. The next plan is to discuss again this beam under lateral loading, but but using the principle of virtual work. And you will see as we go along what's the motivation of attacking this the same problem in two different methods. Okay, and you'll also see the connection between the two. Next, what we are going to do is consider both lateral loading and axial loading. So basically, in this second bullet point, what I'm referring to here is this situation, right? So, uh, so when I say lateral loading, I basically mean that the kind of situation that I am interested in is to do with the bending of beams. When we consider lateral loading, axial loading together, and please note that when I say axial loading, first of all, I'll consider tensile. Okay, so tensile first, just the tensile loading first. Again, we are going to address this using the principle of stationary potential energy. Okay, so the same thing as before, as well as the principle of virtual work. So again, the same plan as before. And the most important output of this discussion, uh, either through the principle of stationary potential energy uh, and the principle of virtual work, is that we'll see that uh, this bending part, as a result of this theoretical development, we'll see that this bending part and under this axial load, whatever stretching occurs, this bending and stretching, these two will be decoupled. Okay, so the equations from this derivation will emerge out in such a fashion that the equation for bending and the equation for stretching will have nothing in common between them. Okay, so this is the most important thing that we'll get out of it. So bending and stretching will be decoupled. Please note that when we write these kinds of things, it is very much within the scope or based on the kind of simplifying assumptions we'll use. Okay, so please don't think that this is like an universal truth. Uh, it is only so under or on the basis of the kind of simplifying assumptions that we'll take. Okay, now suppose you consider lateral loading and axial loading, but make it compressive. Make the axial loading to be compressive. Okay, so instead of this direction of the arrow, just make it inverted, so in this direction. Okay, so what happens then? Well, you see, in terms of the theoretical derivations that we do in this part, okay, and please do not get worried that I am talking about these things in such a superficial hand-waving fashion right now. This is only, as I told you earlier, to give you a very brief overview of this chapter. Uh, Everything that I say here in brief, uh, I will elaborate with full equations, full derivations, so don't worry at all. Okay, so when we address this compressive thing, all that you have to do in the previous theory is to take the negative of whatever this tensile part is. So what if we take the load there to be some kind of P or F? All that we have to do, it may appear to us that our job is done basically if we take minus P or minus F, and that would be the natural temptation for us. Now if we do that, the implication is that just because of that negative sign, none of the derivations will differ. There will only be a negative sign in the place where there was a positive sign for the tensile part. So the conclusion or the for the final situation that we ended up with, that bending and stretching will be decoupled, that will still be true, except that instead of stretching, we'll now have some kind of negative stretching, meaning that we'll have some kind of compression. So if when we had the tensile part, we had bending and stretching to be decoupled, we must uh, understand that when this tensile becomes a compressive axial loading, the bending and the compression will still be decoupled. So there will be no connection between the bending and the compression. Now that is problematic. Okay, so if we proceed like before, this thing can be problematic. And without writing a single equation, you can understand why this is problematic. You see, uh, if you consider this beam, okay, if you consider this beam, let me just copy this, just copy it here. So this orange vertical line, it represents that these two are completely separate situations. Okay. So what I'm doing here is that I'm considering this kind of compressive load. Now we all know that when we apply this kind of compressive load, beyond a certain critical value of this compressive load, this beam is going to buckle. Okay, whether you call it a beam or a column or a rod, doesn't matter. If it is slender enough, and if this compressive force is high enough, then this thing is going to buckle. Now buckling is a kind of instability, but the way that it manifests itself in front of our eyes is that this beam is going to bend. Okay, it is no longer going to remain straight as a result of this compressive loading. Beyond a certain critical value, this is going to bend like this. We all know this. Even if we don't know any of the equations of mechanics of solids, even if we haven't learned anything from undergraduate mechanics of solids, from our physical experience, we know that this is what is going to happen. Now, that is where the problem lies with this kind of a theory, that if we really find that the theory is predicting that the bending and the compression are decoupled, then no matter how high a force you give here, it will never ever predict any kind of bending here, the bending due to buckling. And that is why this is problematic. Let me repeat. If indeed our theory is such that it always predicts that the bending and the compression are decoupled, then the problem with that theory is that uh, it is contradicting the physical truth, which we all know, that beyond a certain value, critical value of the compressive load, it will induce some kind of bending. Okay, so it is certainly not true that the bending and the axial loading, the compressive loading, will be decoupled. So the problem here, the fundamental problem here, is with the simplifying assumptions that we'll be basing our theory on. So that is the point where we have to modify our theory in order to address buckling, and that is the part where we'll start our discussions of the second part of this chapter on buckling. So this is the broad overview. Okay. Now, I'd mentioned at the earlier that I have not discussed this principle of stationary potential energy. So as a prelude to our theoretical developments, let me just do that quickly. So let me go to the next page. So principle of stationary potential energy. Okay, so what we'll do is, uh, we know the principle of virtual work, and that is this thing: the first variation of the total work done due both to the internal forces and the external forces is equal to 0. Now, this thing can very well be written, subdivided into or decomposed into the contributions from the internal work and the external work. No problem there. We have already discussed this at length in the previous chapter on energy methods. Now, suppose you consider that our forces are conservative. So if our forces are conservative, then the the work done due to the internal forces, that can be written in terms of this internal potential energy, of course with a negative sign, and this uh, external work done then can be written in terms of this, or expressed in terms of this external potential energy. So this V represents the potential energy. So what we can do right now is, under the consideration that the forces are indeed conservative, what is going to happen is this. Okay, now this basically means that we have a situation like this. This is very simple. And we all know from our previous chapter that the sum of this V internal and the V external, that is given by this, I don't have to write this bracket, this is the total potential energy. Okay, so starting from the principle of virtual work, under the consideration that the forces, both internal and external, are conservative, we end up with this statement that the first variation of the total potential energy, this capital pi here, this is the capital Greek letter pi, the first variation of the pi, the total potential energy, that is equal to 0. Okay. Now, we have already seen that there is a direct connection between the potential energy and the strain energy. So we can write this principle of virtual work under the consideration that the internal and external forces are conservative in terms of this kind of a statement. So which is which this itself, this itself is what is referred to as the principle of stationary potential energy. So operationally, when we do use this, what we are going to do, uh, what we are going to do is to write the expressions in terms of the strain energy. All right. So and if you are a little bit confused at this point, that what is the connection between the potential energy and the strain energy, I strongly advise you to please go back and refer to the appropriate video from the previous chapter. Okay. Now, there is a very important point to note here. Okay, so because we would be operationally writing our statement of the principal stationary potential energy in terms of the strain energy terms, it means that we would be, when we write the principle of station, or when we use the principle of stationary potential energy, we would be very much restricted to certain kinds of materials. Okay, so the moment you write the expression for the strain energy of a certain system, you are specializing to the specific material behavior under consideration. Okay, so for example, if you are considering this linear elastic material behavior, you would be writing the strain energy corresponding to that. However, when you are writing this principle of virtual work, you are not specializing to any particular kind of material behavior. So that is one extremely important point of difference between these two statements. When you write the principle of virtual work, it is applicable no matter what material you have on your hand. But when you write the principle of stationary potential energy, you are specializing to a certain material. Okay, now operationally again, when we do use this principle of virtual work, in order to proceed with our theory, ultimately we may have to use some kind of material behavior. But the first statements that we write in connection or basing on this principle of virtual work, those will be completely independent of material behavior. It is only as we proceed with the theory that we do have to invoke the material behavior. Now, all of these things may seem like quite a bit abstract to you, but again, as I told you, this is just the prelude. As we go into the full-scale derivations from the next video onwards, you'll see the clear-cut distinctions and the details of everything. So on that note, I'll end this video, and from the next one, we are going to start our derivations of the classical beam theory. All right. Thank you very much.